Welcome to Futureproof Business, smart strategies, real insights, and tools to lead and scale in a fast-changing world. Let's future-proof your success.
Welcome to the Futureproof Business Podcast. My name is Daniel Rosenstein. I'm the host of the podcast. Today I have the honor of interviewing Noel Powers. Noel, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
You have a really impressive resume and bio. You are a global award-winning business coach. You're an author. I took a look at your book, Vision Driven Profit, Lessons from Leaders of America's Best Loved, Most Profitable Brands. Like you studied with Steve Jobs and Apple, which is, I haven't read the book yet, but it was very impressive. You got it's already 5-star reviews, which is really amazing. And you're also in Who's Who, and you're in the 200 top publications as a global expert in the Vision Driven Profit. Is there anything else, Noel, you'd like to share with the audience with? Can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get to where you are today?
Of course. It starts with a crazy story. About 5 years ago, my whole life blew up. I got divorced. I moved states 3 times in 2 years with my toddler. And this was all during the middle of the COVID shutdowns. And then here I was in a new state in an empty apartment. I opened my laptop and I found out that my mentor had died from cancer. And in that moment, I felt like I really could have lost myself, grief and loss, but something amazing happened. In that moment, I really found myself. It had been my lifelong dream to speak to millions of people, to write books, and to make that amazing impact. But it wasn't until that moment that it really became clear, here's what you're going to do. Here is the vision. Here's the path you're going to be on. So my job now as a thought leader and business coach is I want to help you come to that moment where you have some clarity, where you know that it's time for you to act on your vision. And something that really helped me is that I was finally able to step into the role I was really meant for. With my mentor passing, I thought she had been the center of this amazing community. And it was time for me to be the center of my own movement and my own community. So that's when I really decided to pursue this lifelong dream and to create my actual brand with NFactor coaching.
Wow, it's really amazing. What made you decide to study other brands like Apple and those other successful companies?
I was really obsessed with legacy and impact because when you study leadership and business and entrepreneurialism, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur, but I came to the point where I asked myself, what's the one impact I want to make? And so I had to go to the masters of who created the greatest impact as entrepreneurs. And the first person you can go to is Steve Jobs. I actually studied him in a college course. We were talking about people who made a difference in society. And so I wanted to understand this path of not just selling stuff, but how do you lead and influence people? So I said, I'm going to study the masters here. So I did 10,000 pages of research on Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, and the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely. She created a $1 billion brand without spending a penny on advertising. Harley Davidson, they've been in business 120 years. These people they've seen it all. And what I wanted to really understand this path. How do you make that lasting impact through your brand? Because it's not just the study of business. This is literally, I call them the human elements. This is how you lead and inspire people. And the big thing is, if you don't have a long-term vision, there's nothing for people to buy into. So I wanted to answer the questions. What do you focus on? How do you develop charisma for people to follow you? How do you develop amazing products and innovate nonstop so that you can ask for that premium price and so that you'll know that you're leaving a legacy and not just following some of the one-time success, that you're not just a flash in the pan.
Talk about up-leveling your brand. What does that really mean to up-level your brand? And why is it so important to do that?
Of course. because 99% of people compete to not come in last. There's 1% of founders and CEOs that lead industry-leading brands. And what does that mean? That means that they're inventing the future. They're thinking 10 years out. They're thinking 20 years out. They're not only creating new products, they're inventing entire new industries through innovation. And that's something you have to do. And it has always been the case that if you don't have the person with the largest vision always wins. But today, it's even more important because change is happening fast. Now, your competitors will steamroll you faster than ever if you're not socially relevant.
When you talk about creating a legacy brands, what's really separates a short-term business from like lasting brands?
Yes. And in order to answer that, we're going to talk about the process that I discovered, because there's really this path of vision-driven profit. It's a different paradigm. You need to operate from a different paradigm. If you want to achieve the success of a top brand, you need to study their paradigm of success you have to up-level from where you are now into that. And there are 3 steps that I identified in every top brand that leads their industry. Number 1 is there's a long-term vision. If you stop thinking about running your business, stop thinking about all the different disciplines, what is the one change you're going to make in the world? In 20 years, how is the world really better for what you do? And I always say it's a great exercise. Pick one person. Who's the one person you're going to serve? And what's the one impact you make in their life? Are you going to empower them? Are you going to make something easy? Are you going to remove the friction? This is very much what Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos said. Let's remove the friction. Let's teach a consumer that they can use a computer. When Steve Jobs went back to Apple and saved it from bankrupt, it was about 10 years later, it became the world's most profitable brand. His vision was, we are going to integrate every aspect of your life on mobile technology, on mobile devices. And that vision was so big, if you think about this, that literally 10 years later, we went from being stationary technology to being able to do anything on an Android, on a smartphone. And that is the product of someone's vision. Today, 30 years later, and people all around the world, they're still living that vision. They're suddenly able to communicate, to run businesses, to be informed, to be engaged, to participate on a global scale. That is someone's vision that is being lived today. So your long-term vision is that first key that unlocks your potential, because that's how you're going to make your impact. And a lot of people say, but I don't have his personality. I don't have all the money. Your vision is your first step to having charisma, because that is what it really engages people on that emotional level, right? A brand is a visceral connection between real people. So your vision is precisely what you need to attract those lifelong customers and develop an actual movement.
You talk about like the importance of branding, but what are some like the branding mistakes that citizens or entrepreneurs are really making? Some people say, they talk about like in the coaching world, just put yourself out there and be a coach, and anybody can create like an Instagram account and hire somebody on Fiverr to create like a logo or use ChatGPT, and that's considered like their branding. What type of branding mistake? Obviously, what you're saying is it's a fully, you said, very different paradigm shift. And I think
it isn't what you're saying is branding, ing. How do you do branding? You have to go back a step. What is a brand? A brand is a visceral connection between real people. So if you don't have a visceral connection with people, your brand is a feeling. If you don't establish that feeling with people with like step 2, which is like the message, do you really resonate with that person? Do you have a philosophy that connects you like a real tribe? Because if you don't have that connection, why do you care? Your logo and slogan are supposed to reinforce the emotion, but what's the emotion in the first place? So people are trying to do a business building, which is let's create a brand, let's create a logo and a slogan, but that's not your brand. Your brand is about real people connecting. And if you don't have that, who cares what your logo is? So they're focusing on something that is secondary. Now you do need it, but the focus is wrong. What you want to do is you want to go out and find 10 or 20 people who share your philosophy, who will support you. These are lifelong advocates of what you do. And it's what all the founders do. Apple, Amazon, Bread, everyone. They started with 10 or 20 people who really supported them. So before you think about a logo or a slogan or your website, you need to make sure that you can connect with 10 people or 20 people. Make a promise to them and over deliver, because if you can't delight 10 people and become indispensable to them, there's nothing to expand on. You don't have a brand. You have a business, you have an egg, but you want to practice that connection with people, or else you're not going to build something lasting, and you're not going to be able to demand the prices that you want. If you become indispensable in someone's life because you make something easy, you make their life better, you get them excited, you really connect at that level, then you can charge what you want. The other 99% of people just compete with pricing, right? They call it the race to the bottom. So what a lot of people are doing in branding and marketing is they're competing with people who are exactly like they are. You want to separate yourself. You want to step into the 1% by having a process, by thinking long-term, by having a vision that goes into the DNA of your company. You want to have a message that resonates with people. What is one sentence that describes what you do? What's your philosophy? And I want to talk about the power of this philosophy. It's the foundation of your brand. Performance. What does this mean when there's a brand philosophy and everything is, people talk about vision and alignment now, but what do you align? That message has to align people with what you do and your beliefs, because the difference is 90% profit. Every industry leading brand has a very clear message, and the customers come back for life. And just to make this really clear, that Apple has always been a boutique brand, that when they brought the iMac and everything, they went from bankrupt to selling to 5% of the market. But they made 90% of the profit resonating with 5% of the consumers. That's your job with your message. Find a small group of people who resonates with your philosophy, and then you never have to worry. This is not about, how do I make everyone like me? How do I sell to a bunch of people who don't care? That is never your job. Your job is to find that 5% of customers who will be devoted fans of your brand for life. So does that answer the question? It's like two different modes.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about these different brands or companies they were researching. From all the research that you did, Apple, Amazon, Spanx, maybe even Coca-Cola, they're all very different companies. But all those top companies, like these thought leadership, they have something in common, even though
They
they're
do.
very different?
Exactly. So the number one thing is they were all founded by visionary leaders. And visionary leaders always, again, they plan the future in 20 years. So Steve Jobs stepped up and at age 20 said, I am the future of technology. And he went to the number one name in technology, the person who was on the radio and they were creating the publications, and he convinced that guy. And when that guy turned around and said, Steve Jobs is the future of technology, it was an intention, right? In that moment, he was the master of perception. He says, this is the future and I am going to lead you to it. And so the number one common trait among every industry leading brand that's been around for decades that can prove that track record It all starts with a visionary leader. So your job is to learn these traits as a visionary leader because you don't want to compete. You don't want to just have one good product. And you also don't want it just to be you. Founders have all of this energy, and that's great. But how do you teach other people to act on a vision? How do you bring people together so that my measure of success is how do you have a successful brand when you leave? And that gets into the third aspect, culture. Visionary leaders create culture. And you see it. I use the example of Apple because everybody knows who they are. You know what a computer is. But Apple has the most obvious and recognizable corporate culture in the world. When Apple person, when you see those ads, you know it. So you want to be like that. You want to create a culture where, number one, you define what excellence is. And like I said, in our world, we are starved for excellence. In business, there are so many Me Too companies, and you'll hear that, the Me Too. I offer this, Me Too. I offer this, Me Too. That means there's no excellence. You can only be good at one thing. You can only have a reputation around one thing. So the first part of your culture is you need to define what excellence is. What does it look like? And then in my business, because I'm a coach and I teach about visionary leadership, a great example of this for culture is I created the 10 commandments of visionary leadership, right? We create the future in 20 years. We don't respond to conditions, we create them, right? When we're faced with challenges, we honor the opportunity, right? We create positive culture to innovate, right? So you want to think about right now for your culture, what are 3 attributes that every person in your team needs to have, right? What is excellence to you? And what are 3 personal attributes that your team needs to have in order to be hired, right? Because a lot of people go, oh, I want a business where everyone wants to work. Well, it doesn't work that way. You don't have a brand that way. You need to be a place where only one person wants to work, right? It's heaven for the right person and hell for the wrong person.
And so I wanted to ask you something that you mentioned before, because you keep talking about creating like this 20-year vision, but a lot of people and as you mentioned before too, the things are changing so fast. Some people may think like 20 years, that's like way too far in the future. And it's like, you can't predict what's going to happen. Everything's going to change, especially with things like with AI. So how can people that have like this limited mindset that they don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in 20 years,
That's
create a 20-year vision?
Yeah, what I'm talking about is an exercise. Because here's the deal. Most people are going to kill their own brand with short-term thinking. And I'm not telling people to invent a product in 20 years. It's what impact do you want to make in 20 years? Because what people do at a high level, if you want to be part of the 1%, is they choose the impact they want. And then they look backwards and they create a brand that is capable of making that impact, right? Because products come and go. You might have the best idea in the world for one product and it might be successful for a little bit, but then competitors can come in and just kill it. So you need to be innovating nonstop. So what I mean by thinking 20 years out is just being able to project your mind out because your vision is non-negotiable. If you don't want to lead people and inspire them, you're not going to, they don't want to pay you the money. People don't care about stuff, right? You care about values. If you're going to make a large purchase, if you're going to go out and spend $1,000 today, or you're going to go out and buy a brand new car for $50,000, you'd better believe in what you're buying, right? And that's what we're talking about. You don't plan a product in 20 years, but if you don't have that long-term focus, also, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But if you can't think beyond the conditions around you, if you can't see beyond them, you're not an entrepreneur. You have to say, this is the change I'm going to make, and I'm going to do it no matter what, or else you're not an entrepreneur. You need to go get a job somewhere because that's the game we're playing. That is the hard thing, and it keeps you going. having that vision, it gives you fuel to keep going. Hey, this product didn't work, but we're going to keep innovating along the same line. And eventually, for a lot of people, it pays off. Now, not today or tomorrow. Here's the other thing too. This is not about here, let's make a bunch of income today. I don't know what that looks like for you. Remember, people like Steve Jobs, he owned Pixar and Next for 10 years, and he did nothing but lose money. But those teams that he created innovated nonstop. And then what happened? Pixar made one movie and made him an overnight billionaire. And then the next year, Apple bought Next, and his team that he hand selected in Next created the seed of the next generation of iProducts. So you don't get to capitalize on these big ideas if you think small, right? There is a certain amount of time where you might not be profitable or it might not go the way you plan. But with those three ingredients, at least you know that whatever the biggest opportunity that you have, you will be creating the conditions to capitalize on that. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, totally. So I want you to keep talking about the importance of having inspiring and impacting people, but what is the relationship by having strong impact and delivering profits? Because at the end of the day, they're two different things, but what is like the relationship between the two?
Oh, yes.
Like,
there's a direct relationship. The greater the impact you make on someone's life, the more profit you make. Flat out. That's why they say the most successful ads are emotional. Think Different is the world's most profitable ad campaign in history. It literally took Apple to the $1 trillion valuation, first company in history. But what this means for you is it liberates you. You can think about the impact first and what's the real difference you're going to make in someone's life. So you can pick 10 people or 20 people and you can experiment with them. And right now is the best time in history to do it because you don't have to pay any money, right? You don't have to go out and do paid advertising to get your first customers and make all your mistakes. Today, you can make all your mistakes for free, right? You can go on to, it's liberating. You don't have to spend all that money. You can go onto Facebook. You can go onto LinkedIn. You can read people's comments. You get to see your customer interact with the world and ask them questions and take 10 of them and experiment with them to go, have I made this easier? Have you made that process frictionless? You can speak directly to them. What's their biggest pain point? And what are you really doing to improve their life? Because when you know how that person, what they respond to, you can create products that are more on. That resonance can happen a lot earlier now because you have direct access to consumers.
wow, that's really good. I mean, that's interesting. Have you had any case studies about that? Like the people that
Yes, tons. So if you reach out to me, like on my website, I created the $1 million brand method. I interviewed and polled 3,000 entrepreneurs who all created $1 million brands in the last 3 years. And again, I focused, what are the 3 things that changed them from making salary money to making 7 figures and automating their leads? And yes, I have a mini book. It's an ebook. It walks you through those steps because case studies are so important. I am a researcher. I am a studier. I am a consultant. And absolutely, in addition to reading Vision Driven Profit, where you can study all 5 industry leaders, the ones that we mentioned in the first one, then I also have an entire book that was just all case studies on similar processes. And especially now, how do you go online and find your first clients so that you only make products that they love, right? You always want to generate demand before you create the product. That's the other thing too. It saves you so many expensive mistakes. So something I highly recommend in terms of techniques is to create a preview of a product or a preview of a program. Whatever it is you sell, getting previews of it, doing an early release, getting that direct feedback from people before you put something into real production, it saves you so much money, right? You can learn for free what you used to waste millions of dollars. So not only is gaining clients free, but doing that vital research with them is also available at your fingertips.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. It's amazing. It's wonderful that you're so prepared.
Yeah.
There's so much science and research. 'Cause a lot of people, especially like in coaching world, they don't have back to what they're saying. Like,
No,
a
they
lot of people
don't. They
have
don't.
to talk real walk.
Exactly. And that's the thing. There's a paradigm. When I was a young coach, by the time I was 21, I was coaching with people like Tony Robbins and T. Harv Eker. And some of the wisdom they gave me, if you want to achieve a level of success you've never had, you have to operate from a different paradigm. And so I shared the paradigm of vision-driven profit first because I'm not making this up. You can study them, you can read, and frankly, their profits don't lie. You can look at their graphs. I can say, okay, here's how Amazon became the fastest company in history to reach 100 billion, right? The facts are there. I can present them. But then when I'm talking to a real person in front of me, I say, let's take your successful company and transform it into the number one brand in your market in 12 weeks. This is a 12-week process, right? I'm going to teach you how to win an industry award in as little as 1 week. That is a solid piece that's not a far stretch. That is a clear step that you take. Now I say, now let's make it easy. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And it takes as little as 1 week. And now I'm going to show you how to uplevel your brand presentation with your awards so that you can instantly increase sales by 25%. Because then I go really clear into steps. If you're here and you want to be here, what I do as a coach is I say, these are the steps that people have used in over 500 different industries to become an industry leading brand. So these are things you can do even when your company is just in that stage where, okay, let's say you have 100 happy customers and you are ready to scale. You want to start advertising and you want to really make sure that everything's in place so that you have to maximize sales. In branding, part of that is having superior sales on an expensive product. Flat out, the more exclusivity you create, the stronger your brand is, which means the more people you prospect are actually buying premium products. So I always want people to know that the coaching end is having an exact goal and following the steps for, again, branding techniques, marketing techniques, and public relation techniques that, again, you can learn to do these yourself. There's strategies that are, right, again, I want to make them simple and easy to implement and have them be things that actually move the needle of success. Because I'm not going to tell you to redesign your logo, to redo your website. You know what? Almost no one cares about that stuff. Not the way you think they do. It's not as important as things like social proof and knowing how to start a conversation with your ideal client and knowing how to go through your sales conversion process. That's more important.
You keep talking about big companies like Apple and Steve Jobs, and Apple's $1 trillion company. So most people are not CEOs of $1 trillion companies. So how come like small to medium-sized business owners still think or have that visionary process?
Absolutely.
Like you mentioned, $1 trillion company does.
It's the exact, and here's the thing, the principles are the same because we're talking about leading and influencing. So I'll use an example. Steve Jobs, when he was 20, he had $2,000. He made computers in his dad's garage. And I'm just saying, what did he do to actually create a brand? He did the exact same steps that I recommend. So first you go out and you find 10 and 20 people who you understand their desires better than anyone in the world. So he walked down the street and he found all these computer geeks, right? This is in Silicon Valley where he grew up. And he created a computer for 20 people that was exactly what they would want. And he developed this reputation with 20 people who lived down the street. Wow, this is perfect. You didn't need a kit. It was all in one piece. And he practiced on a very small group of people so that he was dialed in. So he understood his consumers better than anyone in the world. And I use this example because he was young, he was broke. He didn't invent this stuff. Woz was over there creating the products. But what Steve Jobs was the visionary. And then he said, look at this. I have a company called Apple Computers. And we are so spot on. We took this computer from being this big monstrosity in a laboratory in the government, and I turned it into a consumer product that people could use. And then what he did is he went to investors and marketers, and he said, you know what? I can invent the personal computer for consumers. And that's what attracted them to it, is he had the proof. And so I'm saying these steps where you create your first product for a very small amount of people, but you have the vision to say, hey, I'm going to take this to the masses. I'm going to transform the lives of 1 million people next year by giving them a computer that is easy for them to use, that what serves the functions that they need, but they don't know what a computer is yet, but I'm going to be the person who brings it to them. I'm going to close the gap between what's really possible here. And that's how you build the actual business. So it is exact steps, the way you work with your customers. And then you use PR and you say, hey, this is the role I play in this. And that's what gives you the charisma, because he stood up and said, I am the future of technology. He took that responsibility. And when you take that responsibility, you are stepping forward. The leader always steps forward first, and then the line forms behind them. So those are literal steps that every company started. Same with Harley Davidson. They started with $2,000 in their family garage, and they did the exact same thing. They made a prototype. They had 20 fans, and they went out and won races just to prove that, hey, if you want freedom on wheels, we're going to give you a bike that will have the power and speed to take you anywhere you want to go. But it starts when you step up.
So like you mentioned also before that like part of what makes, brands successful is their marketing and publicity. And this part of your coaching and teaching to people is like how they become their own publicist. What are some overlooked PR strategies that anyone can implement today? They can share their own.
Absolutely. Number one, it's self-perception. When you show up, make sure you're the best at what you do. Because if you're not the best at what you do, you don't want to use PR. Make sure that you are excellent. Because as Oprah Winfrey says, if you go into media wanting to be famous, no one will remember you in 3 months. But if you show up to serve with excellence, you will be the person no one will forget, right? So again, mentality is number one. Show up, be excellent. Tell people you are number one and give evidence, give proof. I have the number one coaching program for 3 reasons, right? I'm the only person who teaches you how to combine brand leadership, marketing, and PR in one place from the top 1%. Clear and concise, and I back it up, right? Here's a case study of 3,000 businesses who accomplished this goal in the past 3 years, right? So number one, if you're going to use PR, make sure you are only showing up as the kind of person everyone wants to do business with. Second of all is just find someone to say something good about you. And I always say the number one step I recommend is interview your customers and ask them, who is the source of your information? Let's say you sell insurance. I ask all of my happy customers, who do you listen to for advice when you make a decision about your finances? Step number one, ask your customers. Find out who their authority is, and then go to that authority and have them say something good about you. Because someone else saying something good about you is far more powerful. That's the number one content you should have. Third-party verification. Because even when people buy from you, they want their expert to confirm it.
So before you keep talking about thinking long-term versus just short-term. So how can like brands create like a lifetime customer versus just having a quick sale? And I think a lot of businesses struggle with that.
Yeah.
They focus too much on the short sale, don't think of the lifelong customers. So how can, businesses, create either like a strategy or sell something to create a lifelong customer versus a short sale?
Excellent. That's a great question. So we talked about some of it, having third-party verification, because let's face it, a lot of people, even when they've already purchased, you want other people saying good things about you all the time because it attracts people. It's its own thing. Now, the second thing is you need to innovate constantly. So industry leaders, they already have the best product, but they are customer obsessed and they improve on their products nonstop. So one of this whole thing about, building teams, having a culture, your culture needs to innovate nonstop to take the best product and keep making it better. Success is very toxic to most people because it makes them lazy. Most of us get lazy because we're not obsessed. Something that Jeff Bezos says is anticipate dissatisfaction. If your customer is happy with your process, make it better. Make it easier. Make it whatever you do. I'm not going to say make it cheaper, but elevate your offer to the point where no one else can touch it. And that's the thing. The brands that innovate nonstop are the ones that hold customers for life, because if you and I are having this conversation about the results you want, about the life you want to live, and we're on the same page, and I say, not only are you happy with your iMac, but next year, I'm going to put the iMac on a phone. And it's a phone and the internet and, the presentation, right? So you are having a real conversation with people. Now, the second part here is community building. The most powerful part of your brand today that you didn't have 10 years ago is you can create an online community where you stay top of mind. Number one is email, right? Back in the year I was born in the 80s, we didn't have email. If you wanted to get your message out, you spent millions of dollars through marketing agencies and PR agencies, right? That was a mess. But now you can speak to your customer every day. You can send them surveys. Hey, how's this working out? If I could make your wish come true, what update could I make to my product or service, right? Again, no guessing. You don't have to pay to learn this anymore. You can create an online community. You can do this on Facebook. You can do it in your email. You can go onto Facebook groups or LinkedIn and just look at your ideal client. You can make posts. You can ask people questions. How can I make this better? Which one do you like better? You can have real conversations with people inside communities and keep moving forward. So if you keep making someone happy, they're already happy when they buy, but tomorrow you find out how to make them happier, that brings them back for life. Happier.
So you have a program called the 12-week Shakedown. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is, like how it helps people, and what inspired you to create the Shakedown?
Yes, as I do talk about long-term goals, but I have to be very specific to pinpoint. When you already have a successful company, you've already launched, you have a great product, you have a great customers, and you already know what you want to do, but you just need to uplevel. You need to make those shifts quickly, especially if you're really going to go into paid advertising and building teams. I wanted someone to have a 12-week focus on things that would instantly up-level them. So 12 weeks, position your brand as number one. So the first one is you just need a clear brand philosophy, right? That philosophy is what connects people. So there are some specific bullets. So if you don't know how to communicate your brand philosophy, you don't want to be advertising. You don't want to be making posts on social media, right? Because again, that resonance, when someone shares that philosophy with you, it's the number one attraction to your brand. And again, think about it. You want to sell to 5% of people who pay what you charge. This is about killing objections to your premium price, because a brand always asks for more money because they're going to earn it, because they're going to make you happy. So you need to learn this mentality first and foremost, that if you're going to be exclusive, you need to show people what's exclusive about us. Simple words that make a big difference. So your brand philosophy, you need to focus on that. And then there's winning an award. And I'm serious. You can do it for free. You can do it paid, but just learning, literally. How do you find out which award you want? What kind of service? How do you do it? What are the practical steps so that you can get that? And then the third aspect is up-leveling your brand presentation. And in this, I challenge you to make a brand video that's 90 seconds long. So long story short, I was a consultant and sales trainer in one of the nation's top 10 brands, right? They've been industry leaders for 60 years. I led their number one market into the most profitable era in their company history during COVID shutdown, right? Your brand presentation. You need to explain who you are and what you do in 90 seconds, right? Why are you the best? Put those awards there. Why did you win them? You really prove to people. What does that do? It crushes sales objections. Take the top 3 reasons why people say no to buying what you do, turn it into a video, right? Because this is about preeminence. Every top brand focuses on the strategy of marketing. It's called preeminence. This is how people create industry-leading brands in over 500 separate industries. This is like a literal process that people use reliably. This is what the top business coaches have always taught you. But now I'm going to do it differently because you don't have to pay me $100,000 for it. The point of business coaching today is to get you the best information, but remove those barriers of time and expense. This 12-week shakedown, you do it online because your time is really valuable. We're not planning calls. If you need to do this work at midnight on your schedule, that's what the 12-week program, it's a shakedown. Don't go out and do 100 things. Do 5 things that are going to up-level your brand today. But what I mean today is even the top sales rep in our country are improving their sales by 25% by just doing these 5 things.
That's really, thank you so much for your advice. I love talking to you because every time I ask you a question, you give a lot of great advice about what to do and everything. I want to, can you maybe share a success story of somebody even that went through your program or did your coaching and you were able to help that business leader with their transformation?
Yes. So I've worked with a lot of different experts. I've had a personal trainer where they went from making $50,000 per month. I helped them create their own personal brand, and they created, an online community. I showed them how to create that community where they attracted ideal clients with, sometimes it's like free programs. A lot of it is helpful tips, but I really help them create that position as an expert at what they do instead of just being someone who does personal training. I had them really pick their expertise. Let's say it's female executives who are over age 50, who they need to improve their confidence and stamina. It's like they have to maintain their wealth and success. And so I had him go from being a generalist into more of a specialist, especially for the money he wanted. Right? So the first step is go from offering a service to being an expert in something. You can expand later, but you can only be known for one thing. So the first thing I did was have that person really specialize in one thing so that they could build that community full of the ideal client. Why? It's based on what that client wanted. And he kept on demonstrating over and over again that I know you, I hear you, asking questions. and just being very visible in his area of expertise. And then packaging a little bit. Make sure that person is getting the result that they want. Preeminence means that you only sell them the right amount to get them the result. That means you can't do, oh, you can just pay for one session here and there. That does not give anyone results. You have to own your solution, right? You need to have a clear path that shows here is how you get from where you are now to where you want to be. Here's a clear path so that, again, that sale represents result to the person. And then up-leveling it, right? Make sure they're charging the right amount. If you're going to give someone a result no one else is, you'd better charge for it because people only value the thing they have to pay the premium for. So basically, it was a 3-year period. Again, he went from making $60,000 working at a gym to having his own personal brand. And I helped him make his first million over a 3-year period, right? It does build. He did not start with paid advertising. There are different ways you can gradiate it. But then I helped him with things like, again, PR, publishing in the right places, building his brand organically so that he worked out all the kinks, all the bumps, he made all of his mistakes for free or at low cost. And then we talked about scaling with things like lead automation online. Again, this is online business building. I introduced him to software experts who could turn, instead of having 10 leads per month, he suddenly was getting 100 leads and then 250 leads per month. So I'm very familiar with this process of, again, he establishes leadership and authority. He used PR. Then he was using online community building because, again, you can do this for free. Not everyone is going to just jump right into paid advertising. But then when he was ready for that point, he has the brand he wants. That's the whole point. He makes the money he wants for doing the work he values. And he works with lifelong customers who, again, they start happy and he just makes them more happy. And that gives him pride. Again, because just like me 5 years ago, a lot of people, you just come to this point where you say, at what point do I stop just running a business? And when do I really focus on the legacy I really want to leave behind?
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's a really amazing story. Like we talked about earlier about the importance of creating like a long-term vision, having lifelong customers, the importance of marketing and publicity. But like success is also usually not only a one-man show. It's usually you got to build like a team around you. So how can visionary leaders attract and retain innovative teams?
Oh, yeah, that's a superpower. So first of all, it's not a business process. This is a superpower. So it's something. So first of all, you want to study great organizations. Like Steve Jobs, he studied great companies. So number one, if you're going to create an amazing culture like that and teams that innovate nonstop, read the book, Vision Driven Profit, book 1, Steve Jobs and Apple, because if you want a hero, right? I talk about motivation a lot, but I don't know what motivates you. Sometimes you don't know what motivates you, right? That can be a big problem to overcome. So go out and find a hero. Go out and study companies who created amazing teams, right? That's the place to start, right? That's like putting the yeast in the loaf of bread here, okay? So you do need to be motivated. You need to study great brands. And that's what I recommend. Start by studying them. And then then simplify it. Then I talk about specific exercises. In what way is your brand great? Are you making products easier to use? Are you making them frictionless? There's so many ways you can improve it. Or is it just a joy? Or do you take something that used to really stink and you make it fun? So what is it that you do, right? And I love Sarah Blakely of Spanx because, man, she says women believed that beauty is pain. And she says, you know what, with Spanx, those footless pantyhose, she says, you know what, now you just put on the Spanx and you wear the clothes you want. There was joy. She really focused on that. So you have to think about what does excellence look like in your organization? And then what are traits? Let's use something really simple here, reliability. Let's say you own a transportation company and you say, we're the most reliable medical transportation company. That means when we pick up your grandma to take her to her medical appointment, we're the most reliable. Okay, so what would it take for your company to be the most reliable? I'd say, number one, you have to hire reliable people. So when you make a job ad, you say, we value reliability, and specify being reliable means you're on time, if not early. It means that you would really specify this in your ad. And then at work, what does it mean to have a culture that values reliability? Well, you need to value it. You need to celebrate the people who are reliable. Because, a lot of people, their culture stinks. Here's the list of things we want you to do, but they don't reward you socially. You don't have to pay someone more money. But if someone shows up and their contribution counts and you celebrate it, be a culture that celebrates that excellence. And then whatever you celebrate and acknowledge, you get more of. Right? You get more of it. That means you have a pin, you have a button. That means your manager, it calls everyone in and says, thank you for being on time today. Amazing. But you need to acknowledge people for when they're doing the right thing.
So you've been in the coaching industry for quite some time now, and you've done a lot of learning, a lot of research. You've worked with some top people in the industry like Tony Robbins. If you had to go back in time and mentor your younger self as a first-time entrepreneur, what would you say to your younger self?
Oh, absolutely. Relationships. And I'm going to tell you right now, the things that kill your dreams and really stop you from being the person you really can be, it's going to be things inside yourself. It is not going to be everything that happens outside yourself is a distraction. If I had to go back in time, I would tell myself relationships, because they either rob you of the energy that makes you, or they build you up to really pinpoint your vision, right? And so I would say it's relationships. And especially going through a divorce in the middle of the COVID shutdowns, I can tell you that the biggest difference after clarifying my vision and saying I'm going for it is the people around you, your close relationships, they had better be on board. Not because you can't tell them, oh, I'm going to make this money or this is exactly what's going to happen, but they need to invest in you as a person. Because again, the higher you reach, the more your demons appear. You want to face your demons? Oh, reach for something you've never had before. And we've had this conversation and it's so good. You need to build yourself 9 units for every unit that you give other people. So it's like the next time you sit down with a family member or a partner or a friend, you need to ask yourself, is this relationship bringing me peace and stability? Or is it keeping me in a state of confusion and turmoil? Or is there just too much drama? It's like, this is a real thing. Your relationship capital is something that builds you up. So if I could talk to my younger self, I would have changed my relationships so that I could have pursued my dream earlier on.
So can you share with us and the audience about what is your ultimate vision of your NFactor coaching business?
Oh, yes. It's to improve the lives of millions through more inspired leadership. I want, in the near future, including tomorrow, 5 years and 10 years, when an entrepreneur goes out and wants to create this legacy brand to really make their greatest impact, to unlock their power to lead and influence and inspire, I want them to know to grab vision-driven profit so that they know that that's the paradigm that they need to opt from day one in their enterprise.
So Noel, if somebody had a question about a conversation today or they're interested in working with you, what are the best ways they can reach out to you?
Yes, you can reach out to me through NFactor Coaching. It's the letter N as in Nancy, TOR coaching. And of course, I am on social media. We will have those links. And if you are interested in positioning your brand as number one in your market in the next 12 weeks, we have a free training that you can grab today. It is in the links, and that is a free preview of that 12-week program, because I want to give to you for free things that are better than what other marketing coaches have you pay for. So absolutely, if that is your goal, we have that link, and I welcome you to join us for a free webinar training and a free workbook to make that goal a reality.
Well, Noel, I really enjoyed this conversation, but we have to wrap up. Are there any final words you'd like to share with our audience?
Absolutely. Be a little crazy. It's something that Steve Jobs said. His favorite quote was, he quoted Rob Silterman, but he says, here's to the crazy ones, the round pegs and the square holes, the rebels, the troublemakers. You can argue with them, disagree, but you can't ignore them. And he added to it that when other people see crazy, we see genius. So whatever your crazy idea is, let that crazy work for you. And he closes, because it's only the ones crazy enough to think they can change the world who do.
Noel, I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing all with your knowledge and experiences. You have so much to say, so much valuable insight. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us.
Thank you, Daniel.